It was a Saturday morning in São Miguel do Oeste when 62-year-old João Silva locked up his small mechanic shop on Flora Street. His calloused hands still had traces of grease under the nails, even after scrubbing them for 20 minutes with coconut soap. He looked at the foggy mirror in the shop's bathroom and sighed. The navy blue suit he'd bought at a discount store downtown hung on an old wooden door. It wasn't Armani, it wasn't Hugo Boss, but it was the best his 30 years of honest work could afford. João knew today would be different. After months of saving every penny, even selling his old television, he'd managed to scrape together enough money for his daughter Marina's dream wedding. She'd graduated in business administration from a university in the capital, met Rodrigo, the son of a prosperous agribusiness family, and was now getting married at the region's most luxurious venue, Fazenda Vista Dourada, a resort that cost more for one night than João earned in 3 months. The drive to the farm was long and winding. João drove his 2008 Corsa, with half-foggy windows and an air conditioner that only worked when it felt like it. He'd spent the previous night fixing up the car, changing the oil, checking the tires, because he couldn't afford to break down halfway there. Not today. Not on the most important day of his daughter's life. When he arrived at the farm's Golden Gate, a uniformed security guard stopped him. The man looked at the simple car, then at João, with his modest clothes and hands that no amount of soap could make as soft as an executive's. "Good afternoon, sir. Are you an invited guest?" João nodded, pulling an elegant invitation from his inner jacket pocket, printed on expensive paper with gold lettering. The security guard examined the paper with excessive care, as if suspecting a forgery. "Everything checks out. You can follow the main road to the parking lot." But even with permission, João felt the judgmental gaze. He parked his car in the farthest corner, among BMWs, Mercedes, and Audis that gleamed under the March sun. He walked along the Portuguese stone path to the ceremony area, where lavish decorations filled a garden that looked straight out of a magazine. White and gold flowers adorned the monumental arches. Crystal chandelier hung from elegant metal structures. Tables covered with linen tablecloths and crystal glasses reflected the sunlight. It was everything Marina had dreamed of since she was a little girl, playing wedding in the dirt backyard of the house where they grew up. João discreetly looked for a place to sit. Guests were already arriving, women in designer dresses, men in custom suits, jewelry worth more than his entire workshop. He chose a chair in the very last row, trying to go unnoticed. "Excuse me," a feminine voice said from behind him. It was Clarice, the groom's aunt, a 50-year-old woman who exuded expensive perfume and arrogance. She looked João up and down, her expression gradually shifting from curiosity to disdain. "Are you sure you're at the right party?" she asked, not even attempting to hide her condescending tone. João felt the blood rush to his face, but he replied politely, "Yes, madam. I am a guest of the bride's family." Clarice raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Ah, I see. You must be the family gardener, aren't you? Or perhaps someone's driver." She laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound. How kind of Marina's family to invite the staff. Other people started to overhear the conversation. Marcos, the groom's cousin, approached with a malicious grin. "Clarice, leave the man alone. He must be lost. He probably thought it was some company party where he works." João clenched his fists but remained silent. He had promised Marina he wouldn't cause a scene, that he wouldn't do anything to spoil her perfect day. "Look, my good man," Marcos said, placing a condescending hand on João's shoulder, "we don't mean to be rude, but this is a very exclusive ceremony. Maybe you confused it with some neighborhood association event or something." The circle of elegant people that formed around them began to whisper. João heard fragments of conversations. "Who is this man? How did he get in? His hands are dirty with grease. How embarrassing." Dona Eulalia, the groom's 80-year-old grandmother, wearing more jewelry than a display case, shook her head disapprovingly. "In my day, these things didn't happen. There was class, there was distinction. Just anyone couldn't simply show up at family weddings." João felt like getting up and leaving. To go back to his workshop, where he was respected, where his calloused hands were seen as a symbol of honest work, not inferiority. But then he thought of Marina, of all the sacrifices he had made so she could study, graduate, find a good man. He thought of the nights he had worked late to pay for her university, The meals he had skipped so she could have new books. One of the party's security guards approached, clearly summoned by some of the bothered guests.
Sir, call you come with me.
We need to verify a few things about your presence here. João stood up, the dignity he had built over decades of honest work being shattered in just a few minutes. He followed the security guard to a reserved area, where the event coordinator, a thin man with glasses, was waiting for him. Sir, there have been some questions raised about your presence at the ceremony.
Could you show me your invitation again?
João took the paper from his pocket, which was now slightly crumpled from the tension. The coordinator examined the document, checked a list on his tablet, frowning.
Everything is correct here, Mr. João Silva.
But perhaps it would be better if you watched the ceremony from a more discreet area. We don't want the other guests to feel uncomfortable. It was the final humiliation. To be segregated at his own daughter's wedding. João nodded silently, allowing himself to be led to a side area, behind a decorative pillar, where he could see the ceremony but would not be seen by most of those present. The music began. A string quartet played a classical version of Pachelbel's canon in D major. The guests stood, their conversations ceasing in respectful anticipation. The groom, Rodrigo, walked elegantly to the improvised altar under an arch of white flowers. He was truly a handsome young man, well-dressed, with a confident demeanor that came from a life free of financial worries. Then the bride appeared. Marina was absolutely stunning. The French lace dress, which João had helped pay for in 18 installments, fell perfectly on her slender body.
The silk veil extended 4 meters behind her, like a white cloud talking the stone ground.
But what drew the most attention was her face. She radiated happiness, her eyes anxiously searching for someone specific in the crowd. Marina began to walk down the central aisle, but after a few steps, she stopped abruptly. Her eyes kept searching, an expression of confusion and growing concern taking over her radiant face. "Where's my father?" she asked loudly, her voice carrying across the silent ceremony area. Rodrigo took a few steps closer. "Love, maybe he's running late. We can start and—"
"No,"
Marina interrupted, her voice firm despite the tears beginning to form.
"You want to start without my father?"
"He raised me alone since I was 8. He worked 3 jobs to pay for my college. He even sold his television to pay for this wedding. He is going to walk me down the aisle." An uncomfortable murmur went through the guests. Clarice whispered to her seat neighbor, "What unnecessary drama! And who is this father, anyway?" Marina left her bouquet with one of the bridesmaids and began walking between the rows of guests, searching. "Dad.
Dad, where are you?"
From his hiding place behind the pillar, João felt his heart break. His daughter was looking for him, and he was there, hidden like a criminal at her own wedding.
He stepped forward, coming out of the shadows. "I'm here, my daughter."
Marina turned in the direction of the voice, and when she saw João, her entire face lit up. She ran towards him, her dress fluttering, not caring about formality or protocol. "Dad!" She threw herself into his arms, and João wrapped her in a tight embrace, his calloused hands contrasting with the white silk of the dress, but conveying all the love he had built over 24 years. "Why were you hiding?" Marina asked, holding his face between her hands. "This is your day too. You made all of this happen." João looked around at the guests, who now watched the scene with expressions ranging from curiosity to absolute shock. Clarice was livid, her mouth agape in disbelief. Marcos had visibly paled. Dona Eulalia looked like she'd swallowed her dentures. "I didn't want to cause trouble, Marina. I know I don't quite fit in here." Marina stepped back slightly, looking directly into his eyes. "Dad, you are the most important person at this party.
You are the one who walks me to Rodrigo.
You are the one who raised me, educated me, loved me unconditionally." She turned to the guests, her voice clear and strong. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my father, João Silva. He's been a mechanic for 30 years, and he's the most honorable, hard-working, and loving man I know." The silence that followed was deafening. João could feel the weight of their stares, but this time it was different. It wasn't disdain, it was shame. Shame from the guests themselves for their hasty judgments. Rodrigo approached and extended his hand to João. Mr. Joao, I apologize. I should have stood by your side from the beginning. You are my father-in-law, and I am very proud of that. Joao shook his son-in-law's hand, seeing sincerity in his eyes. Thank you, young man. You're a good man.
Take good care of my girl.
Marina took her father's arm, and together they walked back down the aisle. This time, there were no malicious whispers or judgmental stares. Some guests began to stand in a show of respect. A lady in the third row was clearly moved, dabbing tears with a lace handkerchief. When they reached the altar, the officiant, a gray-haired priest who had known Marina since childhood, smiled warmly. Joao, it's good to see you. Marina has told me so much about you over the years. About how you used to take her on the back of your bicycle to school when they didn't have money for the bus. About how you would study with her at the kitchen table, even after working 12 hours at the shop. Joao handed his daughter's hand to Rodrigo, but not before gently kissing her forehead.
Be, my daughter. You deserve all the love in the world.
The ceremony continued, but something had changed in the atmosphere. The guests seemed more reflective, more humble. During the exchange of vows, when Rodrigo promised to love Marina in richness and in poverty, many looked at Joao, finally understanding what those words truly meant. At the party, something surprising happened. Clarice approached Joao, who was sitting at a table near the dance floor, watching Marina dance her first dance as a wife. Mr. Joao, she said, her voice very different from her earlier arrogant tone. I'd like to apologize for what happened earlier. It was unforgivable of me. Joao looked at her, seeing genuine shame in her eyes.
Don't worry, madam.
It happens. No, it doesn't. Or at least, it shouldn't. Clarice sat beside him. Marina told me about your story. About how you raised her alone after her mother died. About all the sacrifices you made.
You are a hero.
Throughout the night, others approached. Marcos came to apologize, admitting his ignorance. Dona Eulalia, leaning on her ornate cane, said she had learned a valuable lesson about judging people by appearances. But the most emotional moment came when Marina approached the microphone to give a speech. I'd like to talk about my father, she began, her voice echoing through the decorated hall. When I was 8 years old, my mother died in a car accident. My father, who until then had shared responsibilities with me, suddenly found himself alone with a traumatized and frightened child. Joao felt his eyes well up. He hadn't expected Marina to talk about this publicly. Many men would have given up. Many would have handed me over to relatives, looked for the easiest solution. But not my father. He learned to braid hair by watching YouTube videos so he could do my braids for school. He learned to cook more than just rice and beans so I could have a varied diet. He worked as a mechanic during the day and as a security guard at night to pay for my private school. The people in the hall were completely silent, absorbed in the story. When I wanted to go to college, he said he didn't have the money. I said that was okay, that I'd work and study later. Do you know what he did? He sold his motorcycle, which was his only means of transportation, to pay for my tuition. For 4 years, he commuted by bus, 2 hours each way, so I could get a university degree. Joao was struggling not to cry openly. Rodrigo, beside Marina, had red eyes from emotion. 6 months ago, when I said I wanted to get married here, at Vista Daurada, he didn't blink. He didn't say it was too expensive, didn't suggest a cheaper place. He simply asked, "Is this what will make you happy?" When I said yes, he replied, "Then that's what we're going to do." Marina paused, looking directly at her father. This man, whom some of you judged today by his appearance, by his simple suit, by his calloused hands, is the richest man I know. Rich in love, in character, in dignity. He taught me that a person's worth is not in what they possess, but in what they are capable of giving. The entire hall erupted in applause. People stood, a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Joao, completely overcome with emotion, stood up and waved shyly, still not quite believing what was happening. Marina came down from the stage and went straight to hug her father.
I love you, Dad.
Thank you for teaching me what truly matters in life. The rest of the party was different. People talked to Joao, interested in hearing his stories, his perspectives. He discovered that one guest's father had also been a mechanic. that one of the bridesmaids' mothers had been a seamstress and raised 3 children alone. As the party was winding down, around 2 in the morning, Rodrigo approached João. "Father-in-law, I wanted to talk to you about something." João looked at him with curiosity. "Marina and I were talking, and we want you to stop working so hard. We want to help you expand the shop, maybe hire an employee, so you can have a more peaceful life."
João shook his head.
"Boy, I don't need charity. It's not charity, father-in-law. It's family. It's gratitude. Marina told me you never accepted help from anyone, that you always wanted to do everything alone. But now you're not alone anymore. You have a son-in-law who admires you and wants to repay, in some way, everything you did for her." João looked at Marina, who stood beside her husband, her eyes pleading. "Dad, let us help you. You've done so much for me. Now it's my turn to take care of you." For the first time in decades, João allowed someone to take care of him. He accepted the help, not out of need, but out of love. 6 months later, Silva and Son Auto Shop was thriving. João had hired 2 employees and cut his working hours in half. Every Thursday, he and Marina had lunch together, maintaining the tradition they had created when she was a child. And whenever someone asked about his daughter's wedding, João would smile and say, "It was the most important day of my life."
The day uno learned that true love always conquers prejudice.
Clarice, who became friends with João after the wedding, used to tell her friends, "That day taught me never to judge a book by its cover again." The most elegant man at the party was the one in the simple suit with calloused hands. And Marina, whenever she told the story of her wedding, would end by saying, "The most beautiful day of my life was when my father stepped out of the shadows and took the place that should always have been his, by my side, with his head held high, showing everyone that the true value of a man is not in what he wears, but in the love he carries in his heart."